All right, good afternoon, everybody. I have with us the editor for ZJoin from the beginning, Grant Kobayashi. Grant, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I hope everything is well on your end. The family's okay. Everybody's good.
Everything's great.
Fantastic. Well, listen, you're kind of the last installment here because you're kind of the last place that the project moves to when we're actually in production. So just like in production, we're going to come to you last and talk about how it all comes together, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever I can shed light on or, whatever questions anybody has, I'm more than happy to answer.
Fantastic. Well, let's start with how you got started, how you and I met. I think we've been colleagues since the late 70s or somewhere in there, haven't we?
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
But I think I got to meet you and work with you my first, if not my first semester, my second semester here at Santa Ana College a couple of years back.
I think your first semester was my first semester as well. So like
Was it?
we got in at the same time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Tell me how you got started in the program and what kind of classes you were taking and how did your interest in editing in particular kind of take off?
Sure. So ever since high school, I really had an interest in film and filmmaking and watching movies and all that stuff. So I figured, why not go through and, check it out. So I initially, out of high school, I went to Irvine Valley College and they had a very limited film program. It was mostly just film history stuff, not a lot of production. And so after there, I bounced to SCC, Santiago Canyon College. They had a little bit more production classes there. Nothing really too great. I mean, I managed to get like an AA and something. I forget what it was. But I finally decided to come to SAC because I heard it was pretty good. And then that's where we met, luckily. And ever since that, that's the production program there has been so great. It's so focused on teaching you what you need to know, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And, just under your guidance, under everyone else there, like who really wanted to help the students actually get that experience as opposed to, classroom learning and all that stuff. That's great for some people, but for others, you really need to have hands-on learning. And that's what this program offered. And that's why I'm really happy that I came here, met you, and went through this whole thing.
Yeah, the timing was perfect for both you and I. And I do have to disclose, I love working with you. I have from the beginning. Your editing rhythm and sense of timing is, we can teach a lot of the technical pieces and what buttons to push and
Right.
and organization of files and that stuff. But one thing that I don't think that you can really teach, you can bring somebody's consciousness to it, but I'm not sure you can teach somebody how to be great at it. And that's that rhythm, that sense of timing. How long do you stay on a shot? When do you decide to hold it? When do you decide to get off it? And there's so many variables as far as that decision goes. And everything that we've had the pleasure of working on has just been spot on. So you certainly have that talent. But will you talk about where you think that may have come from?
My father is actually a musician. He's a jazz musician. So I've kind of been around music a lot. And I really do think, studying other mediums other than just film, but, understanding music and the flow and the structure of what makes a good song good or something like that. Like even that supplemental knowledge really goes into timing and pacing and, it really gives you a sense. But I mean, if you want to stick to film, just honestly watch a lot of films and, see what your favorite directors are telling their editors to do. And you really just kind of get a feel for it. And the third thing I would say is, just kind of go out and do it yourself. The more you cut, the more you learn the rhythm.
Absolutely.
You make mistakes and then you realize, okay, that didn't work. Now let me do it this other way. And then you may find a new way that works for you. So even if, you don't have any projects that you're necessarily working on, just go shoot something with an iPhone or something and cut it together and then see what happens.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I do think that music thing is definitely a component. You don't have to be a musician, but you do kind of have to really get it. You understand that. And I know for
Right.
me in high school, I'd actually studied and taken some classes on drumming. So I couldn't play melody, but I understood beat. And then years later, when I got to edit something, it just seemed like natural, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, awesome. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Let's hop into this thing. I got a couple things that I'd like to walk through if we can. Everybody's seen marked up scripts. They've seen binders. They know what's in there. You're given a binder when we start. And I think the first time that we meet usually is at a table read. So can you take us from there? We'll kind of go through that. And then I was able to find an example of a log sheet, and I can pull that up when you're ready for that.
Sure. So luckily, yeah, I get a binder that's marked up for me, like with the director's script and everything. It lays out the script, all the shots, the shot names and all that stuff. And then there's also diagrams as well in there. So I can kind of visualize what the shot will look like before it even happens. We have all that material. We have obviously the script. I can read what the characters are saying. And then when I get to go to a table read, I get to see the actual actors perform the scenes. And even just sitting there, I'm able to kind of cut in my mind before anything has even happened. Just, okay, how would this dynamic work? Cut between here, cut here, cut here. And you can kind of take mental notes while you're reading the script. Okay, this is a good cut point. This is good. This is good. And then you take all that previous knowledge, you take it in with you at post, and then it makes it a million times easier.
What's interesting, I think people would be surprised at, but understanding is once we get going, once we get into production, either Chris or myself, whoever's directing that segment, we're not sitting with you while you cut.
Right.
You're taking these elements and you're starting to just work with the material, and you do that on your own.
Mm-hmm. I think a good thing what we've done too is that like we've kind of developed like, a working relationship. I kind of know how you guys like things. I know how you guys, I know that that I know how I like things and stuff like that. So, I guess that's another piece of advice I would give somebody is like, if you have someone that you like working with, work with them a lot. Yeah. You guys will develop a rapport. You guys will both, get better at whatever you're trying to do. And yeah, so
it does kind of streamline it for us because when we're in production and we're filming, man, time becomes a premium, and you're able to get like 80% there on that first cut, from all those elements, from your sense of timing. The other thing I'd add is, the characters now too. So
right.
Whose scene is it? Is this a reaction that we want to hold for a McKinsey? All those things come into play. You can put it up and then ask for notes. So in the middle of the night, if we get home from a shoot and you're ready for some feedback, that can all be done remotely, where we may not see each other physically for weeks.
Right. It's another good thing about being, I guess, involved from the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what it's like on a lot of smaller shows, I think. Being involved at the beginning, you really get to see the, from pre-production through production, you get to see the process and everything. And just being there gives you that little extra edge at the end where you're like, okay, I kind of know where this is going and all this stuff, as opposed to, coming in completely after shooting's done and then being given a script and saying, okay, here's our script, here's our footage, get to work. But being able to be there from the beginning, being able to be in contact with the writers, the directors, even the actors, you really get
absolutely.
You get a really good flow, and you can edit much more cleanly and everyone's happy.
And I remember, especially when we were doing the pilot and really getting this going, you dropped by set many times. And I think it was really to get a feel for how it was working, how it was going, less about the technical things at that point, but how are your characters shaping and what was going on.
Right.
And now, because they're the same characters, that carries over into what you're doing now. Yeah. So let's talk about this thing where you're kind of working independently. You're either in your office downtown Santa Ana or you're at the DMC. We've moved it around a couple times, but you've got the director's binder, you've got sketches, you got shot list. Now, when we start filming, you get delivered to you cards. You get a video card, you get an audio card, and then you get a log sheet. I'm going to pull up a log sheet, and let's talk about that for a second, if we could.
You got it.
Oh. Do you see a log sheet?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great, great. I'm running 2 monitors, so it's a little bit weird for me. So you can come in, you could come in really whenever you wanted to on this thing. And I imagine you did when it was down in your office. But you would get something like this from the shoot. And would you just kind of run through what you're looking at for the class?
Sure. I believe these were I believe they were filled out by the AD, or
Yes.
somebody on set had a specified job to kind of keep track.
Yes,
And so what this
AD.
is, it was, so
Yes.
whatever they had their job was to keep track of what the director was saying about each take, and just for logs for me in the future. So if you look at the very far left, we have the shot number, which is in reference to the diagrams, which is in reference to the marked up script. So I can kind of see like, okay, 8D, I can look through my director's binder and I can see, okay, 8D was a wide shot, for instance. The column after that, you see it's our video card. So when we receive cards from the AD, I think as well, all the cards are marked. The SD cards or CFast cards, whatever we use, they're usually marked. And those are displayed there. So it shows me what shot is in what card and what lens they used on set. So I guess this wouldn't be a wide, this would probably be a close-up. But over on the right is where the AD was able to write the comments down. So you can see the take number is 1, 2, and 3, and they were all good. The circle takes with the things that are circled are the best takes. So that's what the director said, okay, that's kind of what I want to use. And so me as an editor, when I'm assembling the rough cut, I can kind of at a glance look at this and see, okay, you know, the director loved this shot. I'm going to put this in there. Just, you know, to kind of streamline things as opposed to going through all 3 takes. Typically I would look through every take just in case there was something a little bit off, but you know, at a glance, it's really easy to see, okay, first shot from the second from the last 8G, there was, you know, one take and it was good. So I can just take that into my editing software, throw it on there, and then cut with the circle takes. And then theoretically, that should make the director very happy.
Yeah, exactly right. And then, excuse me, from my end, I'm trying to give us options. So even though it's the same shot on the same card with the same focal length there, in the second shot there, 8E, there's 2 options. Right. And what we're looking at there is technically it's cool and we like the performance in 4 and 5, but chances are there will be something a little bit different either in that shot, in that scene, or how it opens and closes. And then that for you as an editor gives you an option.
Yes.
So you could pull in the last 2 circle takes and see which one felt better, looked better against the other shots that you have.
Yeah. Even in 8F, you can see how you had a circle take on take 2, but you still did another one just in case, because, you know, we're in film, so, you know, great things can happen in between takes, you know, no one ever knows. But just having those options are great as well.
Yeah.
A good thing is too, not only do we have the good takes listed, we also have the bad takes listed. So I don't, you know, if let's, for instance, 8E is like a long take, you know, it's like 5 minutes long or something. If shot 1 or take 1, sorry, is not great, I don't necessarily have to waste my time,
yeah,
you know, combing through that because it's already listed here. So that's just another time saver, especially on this project when we're so strapped for time, where I'm kind of editing scenes as I'm getting them, and then I'm putting an entire rough cut together at the very end. Time is of the essence, and less time I kind of have, you know, combing through and seeing what's good, and the more time I have just picking out what I already know is good, and then I can just focus on the editing aspect. It really helps me, and it helps the entire production move along quickly.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point. The other thing I'll draw attention to is a lot of the crew has been standing around and probably heard me say that that's a circle take and not know what that means. Well, this is all it means is the AD is supposed to circle that as one of the good preference kind of shots.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing is, how do you then know when you're looking at footage that the shot is 8E on video card A5, and that's you get that information from the slate?
Correct. Yeah, that's all written down on the slate. It's written on the slate, and it's also said by the second AC when they slate for the shot.
Absolutely. So here's where all these things come together. The pre-production, which is shot list, sketches, marked up director's script. Now you're getting cards and a log sheet. And then you're looking at actual footage with slates on it. And this is how the whole thing comes together.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that I'll point out, coming back to your point, which is reduced time, is you don't want to spend your time lollygagging looking through footage. You don't have that kind of luxury or that time. To your point, show me what the good takes are. Let me take a look at that. You're dropping it on the timeline and you're seeing if this is actually going to work, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So let's take a look with that in mind. Let's take a look at a timeline, can we?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to call this up. I have something from episode 1, and I have a nice segment that you did here. It opens with a drone shot that Justin helped us get. Then we go into the dining room with Jeannie. She's on a Skype call, FaceTime call on her laptop there with her brother. And it opens here with this kind of nice tracking shot. And then we go to Jacoby here. Can you talk about some of the elements that you've added here in this scene, Grant?
Sure. If we can take it back kind of to the shot of the brother on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah, so here we kind of added some effects. We kind of wanted to, emphasize that this was a video call and it was, on a school campus, so the feed wouldn't be exactly so clear. So we kind of degraded the footage a little bit, and this is all stuff that you can do in Premiere. It's not, it's not heavy VFX work or anything. It's just really light effects that you can find in Premiere. I also added the little, I guess the FaceTime buttons at the bottom to give it a little bit more pop and to make it look like a actual call. Before this, there was actually at the very beginning of the scene, right after the drone shot.
Yeah. You
can see the incoming video call on the screen. That was another asset that I kind of created. That was done in After Effects, but it was just, really basic stuff.
It's a really nice effect, and it wasn't in what we shot. So you laid that in post here in Premiere, right?
Yeah, a lot of my job is kind of solving problems after the fact. And the main problem we had with this is that she's actually talking to a recording. It's a actual video clip, so it's not an actual conversation. So before, when you start tracking shot, you can see on the screen that he's just kind of paused until she hits the space bar and plays the video, essentially. So I had to have something to cover up the screen, so I came up with that incoming video call thing.
There you go.
And then when she presses the button, the video starts, and then they have the conversation.
Yeah, and, the way that we actually did this was we shoot Jacoby on a completely different week, a completely different night. We give you that footage. You exported it quickly for us, loaded it up in the laptop, and then Jeannie's playing that back in real time.
Right.
Audio wise, do you have a challenge there?
A little bit. You can, I had the audio that was coming from the shots with Jeannie in the dining room weren't great on his end that you can kind of tell that it wasn't, I guess, live. And so I had to kind of splice together using J and L cuts. I think if we zoom in, we can probably see them on the audio tracks, the green audio tracks. So it's just a lot of, knowing when to cut in from the original video's audio of Jacoby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
for somebody that hasn't taken editing yet, will you explain a J cut and an L cut? We're looking at one on a timeline here.
sure. If you see where like the light blue clip and the kind of tan clip meet,
Yeah.
underneath there's a green clip, and that's the audio clip. That audio clip belongs to the tan video clip. And as you see, it kind of starts before the tan video clip.
Yep.
And that's what's called a J cut. So if you imagine the two clips at the very top as the start of the J, the green audio point kind of makes a J cut. So it's like basically what a J cut is that the audio from the next shot comes in before the shot itself.
Right.
And the L cut is just the opposite. The audio from the previous shot continues on into the next shot. And that's just it's an easy way to kind of smooth in, like, I guess, when dialogue scenes and stuff like that. It just gives it a little bit more of a natural transition rather than just cutting each time the camera angle changes and cutting to each person's dialogue. It's it's just a little trick that a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people know, but they should know this technique. It's very
with when you cut dialogue, you cut especially just two people talking like that. If you don't use the J and the L cuts, it becomes too ping pongy. It becomes too predictable and almost too bouncy.
Yeah.
The L and the J cut make the scene become a little bit more seamless. And unless you're watching, unless you know this is going on, you won't even know that the editor did that. But as far as the rhythm goes, it impacts it hugely. It's really important.
Right.
And then there's times where you need to just bounce through it and you need to cut right into it. And that you've done here. You can tell from the timeline and here. And I'm assuming the pink up here are these, that's your graphic element?
Yeah, that's just another video layer for the graphics.
Nice. So one of the things I want to point out to folks as they head into, if they're going to take the editing class, is look how organized this timeline is and how there aren't, I've seen beginning simple projects that have like a dozen layers of video stacked. And it just gets way too confusing. I love how organized your timeline is here, and I think it's an important way to work.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the biggest things for an editor is to always be organized, no matter what. Especially when it comes down to when you fine tune anything, or when the director comes in and wants to make changes, you kind of want to know exactly what each thing is before I could look at a glance and say, okay, the first two video layers are most likely video clips. And then anything above that are typically, my graphics, my subtitles. If I need them, I didn't need them in this project. But you kind of want to know where everything is. And that kind of goes back to it goes all the way back to pre-production.
Yeah, it does.
Where the naming of the clips and everything like that, and the naming on the video logs that I received, what cards contain which clips and stuff like that. And that all comes into Premiere with me, as you can kind of see on the left-hand side.
Let's look at that.
Yeah.
So if you look in here, I love the way that you have this laid out as well. But we've got audio, and your audio files are laid out. And the way that we chose to work was by day. So we know that cards are labeled by days, that we can always go back based on our shot list to find out what things we were shooting on a day. So we carried that kind of scheme over to post with you. And now you can see in footage, these were all the days that had primary days of shooting. So September 5th, the 19th, 21st, 24th. And then within there, how many cards do you have? So you have one on the 19th. Let's get to one where you have two. Let's see if we did a longer day. I'm sure we did one. Yeah, here's two here. So you have a C6 card and then a micro. So that must have been from a drone shot.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was.
So let me go up to one of these guys, open it up. And then what we can see here is you're carrying over, I believe, the scene numbers, and you probably got these from the log sheet, right?
Yeah, so these are just, so yeah, Derm already went over it, but we have the date, then we have the card number, and then inside the card number, we have 8A, which is the shot number. So it's scene 8, setup A, and then the take is afterwards. The untitled MVI files, I believe those were mistakes. Like they were kind of just like shots in between takes that I didn't really need. Or sometimes people press record by accident.
Yep.
And so they weren't really takes. But primarily we try to keep it in this system where it's date, card, and then shot number and takes. And that is, again, all easy. So if Derm comes back and says, I need the reverse shot of this for this scene that we shot on this day, I can just go in here, find it, and then boom, it's a super easy fix. Just drop it in here. And then we see how that looks after whatever changes are requested.
We talk about this a lot. I do anyway in the 115 beginning class. There's like two aspects to all of what we do in our field. One is kind of a technical aspect, and my metaphor for that is learning how to play notes and chords if you were a guitar player. And then the other is the aesthetic part. So now that you know that, you can play a song, and you just can't do one without the other. So if you're not this organized when you're pulling your files and your footage in, you can't get to that more aesthetic and kind of fun part where you can start massaging a scene and move your cuts around. Would you agree?
Exactly. I mean, to bring it back to an earlier point, we're talking about, saving time, going through circle takes and, making sure that I have all those notes that I need. Thanks to the assistant director, it really offers me more time at the end to focus on, okay, let's polish this up. Let's make it really clean because I'm spending less time going through the organization because the organization is already done.
Yeah, so, and the kind of fun thing there for me to watch is that this stretches across everybody in the production. Even though you may not see it, I get to see it because I get to see it from start to finish. But things that the AD and I would do in pre-pro in creating shot lists and naming them end up all the way throughout the shoot on the slate, and then ends up in your hands so that you're seeing the slate, you're seeing the shot list. Now you're naming the files the same thing. And the beauty is it allows us to work concurrently and somewhat independently, and we know what each other's doing.
Right.
And if you came back, and this has happened fortunately only one or two times, but if you have a corrupted file, for instance, or it just doesn't play, you can text the AD or you can text me and say, hey, shot 8B cut 2 is corrupted, and that's the only take we have in that. So we can instantly find what that might mean within the show.
Yeah. Luckily, it's only happened, I think, like once. But yeah, it's a very good safeguard to have, especially when everyone kind of understands the language. The directors on set, they know this shorthand, I guess, of like the AA1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Us in post know it, me. So it's really easy to kind of reference shots. So it all just helps communication ultimately.
It does. Can we go ahead and let's come back to this if we can. And will you talk about shot selection here?
Sure. So
So with Jacoby, that's just a straight shot. So we were trying to mimic, even though we didn't shoot it on a computer, we were trying to mimic a computer camera. So we don't move it; it doesn't zoom. But Genie's does.
Right. So, you know, part of editing is, I guess, you know, all of filmmaking is emotional manipulation. So when, you know, they're kind of at the beginning, they're kind of chatting about really light stuff, you know, you can kind of keep it on the wide shot, establish who the players are and what's going on. And I believe around here or something, it kind of gets more serious. And that's when we cut into the close up.
Nice.
So that's really, you know, bringing out because this is the emotional heart of the scene.
Yeah.
And so when we go to the close up, it tells the viewer or the audience, like, okay, start paying attention now. And then this is actually where I think this is where the J and L cuts stop. I think it's really harsh.
Yeah.
Because it's a really back and forth serious thing. It's not really flowy.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, I guess choppy because they don't really know what to say to each other. And so, yeah, shot selection plays a big part. You know, I could stay on the wide the whole time, but the viewer would obviously get bored. You kind of need to know when to punch in and stuff like that.
And then, so now you come back to a little bit wider here. It's a little bit lighter moment. It also gives us a little bit of a visual relief from those close-ups.
Yeah, if you stay in close-ups for an entire scene, you know, that just gets weird. It gets a little...
Does.
Unless that's what you're going for in your film, then go for it. But for this, that's not really what we wanted. So when it gets lighter, we come out and, yeah, just as Derm says, relief.
Now, you do have two choices, excuse me, with Jacoby. Look at his eyes. You have this OTS where it's playing off the screen, but then you could also cut to him full screen as well. There.
Right. I didn't want to, you know, overuse that on-screen shot. We had that really nice over-the-shoulder to kind of reinforce that it's, you know, it's still a conversation between her and her computer. You know, we had a lot of coverage and I didn't want to just use the same shots over and over again.
Now, and here, Grant, you spend a little bit of time on a reaction shot. It's really nice. So he's talking, he has the words, but look at this. Her eyes and what she does is really the key there.
The great thing about this shot too is that since it's a reaction and since she's talking to a computer and you can't see what's on the screen, I don't even think her reaction was to what he was saying in that.
Right.
I found that in like a later part of the clip in reference to something else, but I was able to bring that in. And that just goes with shot selection. And I believe that's under a really long J cut because it's just his dialogue.
Yeah.
And then it's her reaction shot. So it's, you know, you can find things like that if you kind of just, you know, comb through the footage after you have your base down. Then you can really start going in and looking, okay, actually this reaction shot will be better here. And you can really play with it like that. So...
Yeah, what we do when we're shooting it is, excuse me, sometimes we'll put reaction shots in the shot list, but other times, especially when two actors are in the room at the same time, if we film the whole scene, you have your reaction shot on that close-up because we stay with that actor.
Right.
So you can go in and find those reaction shots within that individual take on that shot. Mm-hmm. But you have to match the right reaction to what's going on in that scene, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, really nice job here. And her eyes are just incredible. And John's done a great job with lighting this. Awesome. Well, let me get out of this. And are there anything that you'd like to share with folks that we kind of haven't covered maybe yet about your craft, what you're doing, what's your favorite part maybe?
I would just say like, I love editing. I want to be a film editor eventually. Like I want to do movies or TV, like as a career. But I mean, I honestly enjoy every part of the process. And I really do think that's important. A lot of people think, oh, I want to be a DP or I want to be a director, but they kind of don't know what else goes on. They don't know what it's like to be a PA. They don't know what it's like in post or anything like that. And I think it's kind of important to get at least a general knowledge of everything. That way, like, oh, I know what the DP is doing here. I know what the director's doing. And the more you know about your team, the more you can really do your job to the best of your ability. And I think that's important, at least to understand like a base knowledge of everything. You don't have to be the best of everything, but kind of, take your time, learn everything, learn aspects of everything, and then it will make you whatever you want to be. You'll be better at it, I think.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Often I'll have somebody come to me and say, why do I have to take editing? I just want to be a shooter. I just want to be a cinematographer. Or why do I have to take, cinematography if I really just want to be an editor? And you've hit the nail right on the head. Whatever you choose to do, the better understanding that you have of everyone else's role will make your job easier. So exactly. If you understand why we're struggling, or if we lose an audio track for some reason, you've been on set, you know how crazy it is. And I think you have a better understanding for what everybody's doing in the process. Well stated.
Thank you.
Well, Grant, I know you're in the process of moving. I really appreciate you making the time for us in class. As always, it's an honor and a privilege to get to work with you as an editor. But thanks so much for carving out a little bit of time to talk to us about your craft.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me.
Will do, and I hope to be back working with you soon. So
yeah, man. As soon as it's all over, let's do it.
Thanks, Grant. Let me kill the record here.